Before I tell you this story, I need you to hold on to something. 9 years. That's how long it took me to walk back through a door I left in the dark, with a duffel bag and $47 worth of bus ticket and a letter held together with tape. But here's what I need you to stay for, because what I put on that coffee table in front of 32 people, in front of my mother, in front of the grandmother who started all of this, it was not an argument. It was not a speech. It was a document. And it changed something in that room that cannot be unchanged. Stay till the very end of this story. Because the thing that happened 5 minutes after I walked out the door, the thing I did not plan for and did not expect, that's the part that took me 9 years to understand. And about 9 seconds to deliver. If you're new here, hit subscribe right now before we start, because this channel is not a place you want to find late. And drop your city and the time you're watching this in the comments. I want to know where in the world this story is landing. Story begins. I was 18 years old the night my mother tore my Georgia Tech acceptance letter clean in half. Both halves. Right down the middle. Slow and deliberate, like she wanted me to watch every second of it. "This is not what Bennett women do," she said. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just set the pieces down on the kitchen table like she was folding laundry, turned her back, and walked into the other room. I stood there in the kitchen of our house on Clover Street in Harlan, Kentucky, staring at those two halves of the most important thing I had ever held in my hands. I went upstairs. I locked the bathroom door. I sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the bathtub at 2 in the morning. I had a roll of Scotch tape from the medicine cabinet and 4 pieces of cream-colored paper with a gold university seal across the top. I taped every tear like I was stitching a wound. By 4 in the morning, the letter was whole again. By 5, I was gone. I didn't come back for 9 years. And when I did come back, I walked into my grandmother's 80th birthday party in front of 32 people. Family, church friends, neighbors, and I laid something on that coffee table that my mother still cannot bring herself to talk about out loud. My name is Nora Bennett, and this is the story of what I brought back with me. Welcome back to Silent Revenge. This channel is for women who grew up holding everybody else together while quietly falling apart on the inside. It's for women who learned how to leave a room without slamming the door. For women who know that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all and just show up. Before we go any further, drop your city and the time you're watching this in the comments right now. I read every single one. And if you've ever taped something back together that someone you love tried to destroy, tell me about it below. Make sure you subscribe too, because the story I'm about to tell you has a twist at the end that took me 9 years to understand, and about 9 seconds to deliver. I grew up in Harlan, Kentucky. Coal country. Kind of place where the mountains are beautiful and the options are narrow and everybody knows your grandmother's maiden name. We lived in a 2-story house on Clover Street. Tan aluminum siding, a covered porch, a gravel driveway that my dad's pickup truck had turned into a muddy rut by the time I was 10. 4 bedrooms, but only 2 of them had proper heat in winter. My grandmother, Ruth, had the one off the living room. My parents had the one at the end of the hall. My sister Jess and I shared the middle room with a space heater and a wall we'd covered in magazine cutouts of cities we'd never been to. My father, Dale, worked as a shift supervisor at Combs Mining. Early mornings, came home gray-faced and tired, ate dinner quietly, watched the news, fell asleep in his recliner. My mother, Carol, ran the house. That was her whole world. The house, the church, the casserole dishes she'd deliver to sick neighbors, the flower bed she kept meticulously in summer. She was good at it. I want to be clear about that. She was really good at it. My grandmother Ruth was the original keeper of the rule. The rule didn't have a name. Nobody wrote it down. Didn't need to be written down because it was built into everything. The way meals were timed, the way daughters were spoken to, the way the future was never really discussed because everyone already knew what it looked like. The eldest daughter stays. She keeps the house. She marries someone local. She doesn't go far. She carries the family forward by staying rooted in it. My grandmother had done it. My mother had done it. My Aunt Diane, Mom's older sister who lived 4 miles away off Route 119, had done it. I was next in line. Jess, my little sister, was 12 at the time and still young enough that nobody had started marking her for the same life yet. I never said no out loud. That's not how we operated in our house. Feelings were contained. Disagreements were absorbed. You didn't make scenes. You didn't raise your voice. You folded your unhappiness up the same way you folded the dish towels, neat, hem out, no wrinkles showing. So I said no the only way I knew how. Quietly. In secret. In a place nobody thought to look for me. That place was the Harlan County Public Library, 2nd floor, east corner, the study table behind the reference section that smelled like old carpet and radiator dust. I went there on Tuesday afternoons when I was supposed to be at volleyball practice, and on Saturday mornings when my mother thought I was working a babysitting shift for the Hendersons down the street. I was babysitting the Henderson kids 3 Saturdays out of 4. The 4th Saturday, I was on a Greyhound bus to Lexington, Kentucky, sitting in the back row with a number 2 pencil and a borrowed SAT prep book, praying nobody from our church saw me bored. I scored a 1,540 on the SAT. I scored a 34 on the ACT. I told nobody. Not Jess. Not my best friend Dana, who would have told her mom, who would have told my mom before I got home from school. The only person who knew anything was Mr. Calloway, my AP chemistry teacher. He never asked me directly. But one day in October, he left a Georgia Tech engineering program brochure on my lab desk with a yellow sticky note that said, "This seems like you." Just saying. He never brought it up again. I never brought it up either. But I took that brochure home, hid it inside my chemistry textbook, and spent 2 weeks reading it like it was scripture. I applied to 7 schools. Georgia Tech was the reach. The other 6 were state schools I couldn't afford. The big envelope arrived on a Wednesday in February. I was walking home from school and I saw the corner of it sticking out of our mailbox from halfway down the street. Gold and white Georgia Institute of Technology printed in navy across the upper left corner. My heart dropped into my shoes. I tucked it under my jacket before I even reached the porch. I went straight upstairs, locked the bathroom door, sat on the edge of the tub. The letter was 3 pages. First line, congratulations. Second line, full need-based scholarship. Third line, on-campus housing and meal plan included for all 4 years. I read the first sentence 11 times. I cried without making a sound. I sat there I looked at my watch later, 16 minutes. Just me and 3 pages and the water dripping from the faucet I could never get to stop. Here's the thing about that moment that I've never told anyone until now. I had a plan. And the plan had always been to apply in secret, get the yes or no, and then decline. Plan was to know. Just to know that I could have. To fold that knowledge up and keep it in the same hidden place where I kept the test scores and Mr. Calloway's brochure. Plan had never anticipated a full ride. Room, board, tuition, all of it covered because my family's income qualified for maximum need. I read the scholarship line a 12th time. Then I folded the letter into thirds, slid it under the bath mat, and went downstairs for dinner. My mother asked if I wanted more pot roast. I said no thank you. She said I looked pale. I told her I had a headache. I had 36 hours before the second envelope would arrive. The housing forms, the parent financial paperwork, the documents that had my name all over them, and I hadn't figured out what I was going to do about any of it. I didn't figure it out fast enough. Friday afternoon. I came through the back door at 3:30. My mother was in the kitchen wiping down the countertops. She had the dish rag in her hand. She didn't look up. The letter was on the kitchen table. Not hidden. Not angled away. Placed flat in the center, right between the salt shaker and the napkin holder, like she'd put it there to air out. All 3 pages unfolded. She'd found it when she flipped the bath mat to mop the bathroom floor. That was her Friday routine. I'd forgotten about her Friday routine. She still didn't look up. She kept wiping the counter in slow circles. Sneaking mail behind my back, Nora? I started explaining before I even set my backpack down. Full scholarship, no cost to the family, 4 years of housing and meals already covered, an engineering degree that would. She turned around. She picked up the letter. She looked at me for exactly 2 seconds. Then she tore it. Slowly. Right down the center fold. All 3 pages at once. Then she turned the halves and tore them again into quarters. 4 pieces of cream-colored paper drifted onto the kitchen table. This is not what Bennett women do. My grandmother Ruth in the living room didn't move from her armchair. My sister Jess was on the bottom step of the stairs, holding the banister with both hands, white-knuckled. My father was out in the garage and didn't hear a thing. The whole tearing took maybe 8 seconds. My mother never raised her voice. And somehow that was worse than any shouting could have been. By 7 o'clock, Aunt Diane was at our kitchen table. She lived on Route 119, 4 miles away, and she'd been there within 2 hours of the tearing. My grandmother had come in from the living room. My father had taken a sandwich to the garage. Jess was upstairs and was not invited to this meeting. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the table. Nobody had moved them. They were the centerpiece of this whole little gathering. My grandmother spoke first. The eldest daughter stays. Always has. That's how this family works. Aunt Diane nodded like she was in church. I stayed. Your mother stayed. Your cousin Bethany stayed. That's how we do it. I said Georgia Tech was offering me a full scholarship. I said the words full scholarship slowly and carefully, the way you explain something to someone who's pretending not to understand. My grandmother adjusted her glasses. Well, then they wasted the postage. My mother said, your sister is 12, Jess needs you here. Aunt Anne leaned forward. She said something I almost didn't fully catch, but that I've thought about almost every day since. She said, your aunt had her chance once too. Then she paused. So did your mother. Caught chance and I caught aunt and my brain got stuck there. I didn't grab the second half of that sentence. I should have. I didn't. My grandmother said it again, the eldest daughter stays, like repetition made it more true. Nobody asked me what I wanted. Nobody asked what the scholarship covered. Nobody asked what I'd scored, what the degree was in, or what I planned to do with it. They'd already decided. They'd decided the night I was born. Probably before. I stopped talking at 8:30. I went to bed at 10. I lay there in the dark listening to the house settle and thinking about the 4 torn pieces still on that kitchen table. I went downstairs at 1:40 in the morning. Pieces were still on the table. My mother had not thrown them out. She'd left them exactly where they fell. A lesson. A reminder of what she'd decided. I gathered all 4 pieces. I carried them to the upstairs bathroom. Locked the door. Sat on the tile floor. Scotch tape. Mom kept a roll of it in the medicine cabinet for the labels on her prescription bottles. I pulled the strip slow and careful, laid each piece of tape like I was suturing something. My mother had taught me to mend things. She just hadn't specified which things were worth mending. Hems, yes. Buttons, yes. Letters from the Georgia Institute of Technology, apparently not. But I was doing it anyway. The scholarship sentence ran right across 2 tape lines. I could still read it. Every word of it. I folded the letter back into thirds. I put it in the inner chest pocket of my denim jacket, the one with the zip closure. Then I went back to my room and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. $320 in cash I'd saved from babysitting and a few odd jobs at the library. A printed Greyhound schedule I'd downloaded at the library in October and folded into eighths. Harlan, Kentucky to Atlanta, Georgia departs 5:45 a.m. I wrote Jess a note. Half a page on a piece of notebook paper. I told her I loved her. I told her I was going somewhere I needed to go. I told her she was going to be okay. I slid it under her pillow at 3:30 while she slept with her mouth open and her arm hanging off the mattress the way she always did. I went downstairs in socks. The light in the garage was on. I had expected it to be off. My father was standing at his workbench. Sleeves rolled up, hands greasy, some part of his truck engine spread out on a clean rag. He wasn't working on it. He was holding a wrench without turning anything. He had been waiting. I stood in the doorway with my coat on and my duffel bag at my feet. He turned around and looked at me the way he looked at things that needed fixing but that he didn't quite know how to fix, long and steady without any rush. He nodded once. "Your mother loves you, Nora." "I know, Dad." He wiped his hands on the rag. Went into his back pocket. Counted out bills, some 20s, a 10. He held them out without making a speech about it. $90. Everything he had in his wallet at 4 in the morning, 2 days after payday. I took it. I put it in the jacket pocket on top of the letter. "For the road," he said. He didn't ask where I was going. He already knew. He'd heard the phone calls through the wall. He'd heard the tearing. He'd been awake the same way I had been awake. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say goodbye. He turned back to his workbench. I picked up my duffel and walked out the side door of the garage into the dark. It was 4:15 in the morning. 33 degrees. I could see my breath. The Greyhound station in Harlan was a cinder block waiting room attached to a gas station convenience store about a mile and a half from our house. I walked it in 26 minutes. My duffel was a navy blue nylon bag with a busted zipper pull that I'd been meaning to replace for a year. It had 2 changes of clothes, a copy of The Alchemist that I'd borrowed from the library and was technically overdue, my high school transcript folded twice, my driver's license, my backup glasses, and a Ziploc bag with my toothbrush and half a travel-size toothpaste. That was everything I owned that mattered. I bought my ticket at the window. Atlanta Greyhound. $47. Parted 5:45 a.m., arrived at Atlanta's 5-Point station at 9:18 p.m. 15 hours and 33 minutes, 2 layovers, 1 stop in Knoxville where I ate a bag of peanuts from a vending machine and called it dinner. I watched our street slide past the window as the bus pulled out. 3 blocks east of the station, our house on Clover Street, the garage light still on, the upstairs dark. My mother's silhouette in the kitchen window with a coffee cup. She was watching the bus go. I am almost sure of it. I didn't wave. She didn't see me. Jess's bedroom light came on at 5:50. She'd found the note. The light stayed on for exactly 3 minutes. Then it went dark. I've spent a lot of years wondering what she did in those 3 minutes. I took the taped letter out of my jacket, read the scholarship line one more time, folded it back, pressed it against my collarbone, and fell asleep against the window. $320 from babysitting. $90 more from my dad. 1 roll of Scotch tape and 1 repaired letter. It was enough. Atlanta's 5-Point station at 9:18 at night smells like exhaust and floor wax and the particular kind of fluorescent light that makes everyone look slightly unwell. I walked from 5 Points to the Georgia Tech campus with my duffel on my back. It was 4 miles. I had printed directions from the Harlan Library 2 weeks earlier. I arrived at the Office of Undergraduate Admissions just after midnight. The office was closed. I sat on the hallway floor outside the door with my chemistry prep book open on my knees, pretending to study until a security guard asked me to move along at 12:50. I found a study lounge in the student center basement. Green vinyl couch, fluorescent lights on a timer that clicked off every 30 minutes unless you got up and hit the switch. I got up 4 times. I slept maybe 3 hours total with my duffel as a pillow. Monday morning at 8 a.m., a woman named Dr. Patricia Reyes opened her office door, saw me sitting on the bench in the hallway, and said, "You're here early." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "How early?" I said, 2 days. She looked at me for a moment, really looked, the way some people do when they're actually trying to understand what they're seeing, then she said, "Come on," and walked me down the hall to the dining facility where she had faculty credentials. She sat across from me while I ate scrambled eggs and toast and orange juice and didn't say a single word until I'd finished all of it. Then she said, "Tell me what you have." I had the taped letter. I had $363. I had a broken pull duffel bag. I had no parent financial paperwork because my parents had made clear they would not be providing any. Dr. Reyes picked up the taped letter. She turned it over. She turned it back. She held it up toward the window like she was checking for a watermark. She said, "Hold on to this." I started to put it in my jacket. She stopped me. "No. Frame it. Doesn't have to be fancy. But put it somewhere you can see it every day." That was my first week at Georgia Tech. The first year went the way years go when you're running. 18 credit hours each semester plus a summer session. I worked 22 hours a week in the aerospace materials lab washing glassware and logging test data, and another 12 hours at the dining hall on weekend breakfast shifts. My GPA at the end of freshman year was 3.81. Sophomore year I got it to 3.88. I emailed my mother twice. The first time was the second week of school, my new address, the dorm phone number, an explanation that I was enrolled and safe. The second email was after fall midterms, 2 short paragraphs ending with "I miss you." Neither one got a reply. I stopped sending emails. October of sophomore year, I was at the desk in my dorm room at 11 p.m. going through the backlog in my inbox. There was a message from an address I didn't recognize, Jessie B94 at a Hotmail account. I almost deleted it. Then I saw the subject line. "Mom told church you're dead." The body was 4 sentences. She told Father Braddock at St. Mark's. He announced it at the end of Mass. He asked people to pray for the family. Aunt Diane confirmed it when people asked. It was signed Jess. I read it 3 times. I closed my laptop. I went to the shared kitchen down the hall, drank a glass of water, came back. Read it a 4th time. My mother had buried me. Not figuratively. She had told the entire congregation of St. Mark's Lutheran Church on Cumberland Avenue in Harlan, Kentucky, that her daughter had died. Aunt Diane had been the corroborating witness. The story was cleaner than the truth. A dead daughter is a tragedy you receive flowers for. A daughter who left is a scandal you field questions about every Sunday for the rest of your life. My mother had chosen the version she could live with. I didn't reply to Jess that night. I didn't know what to say to a 13-year-old who was living inside a lie. I went to bed at 11:45. Didn't sleep until almost 3. Here's the part I've never talked about publicly before. There was a moment sometime around the middle of junior year when I almost went back. Not because I wanted the life they were offering, but because I was tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired where you're sitting in the library at midnight trying to work through a thermodynamics problem set and you start crying not because the problem is hard but because there is no one, not a single soul, who is going to ask how you're doing tonight. Nobody who remembers your birthday or knows you get migraines when it rains. You are absolutely alone in the most complete way a person can be alone. I almost called my father that night. I picked up the dorm phone and dialed the first 6 digits of our home number and then sat there with my finger hovering over the last one. Then I put the phone down. I finished the problem set. I went to bed. I tell you this because I don't want you to think that leaving was easy or clean or that I floated through 4 years on some wave of determined independence. It was grinding and cold and quiet in all the wrong ways. The leaving cost something that I'm still not entirely done paying. But I paid it. And I kept going. Junior year, April, I was walking through the student center past the main desk when the attendant called my name. There was a man on the lobby phone who said he was my father. I hadn't spoken to him in over 2 years. I picked up the receiver. Nora. His voice was exactly the same. Dad. Grandma Ruth had a heart episode. Not a big one. She's home. She's been asking about you. I watched a freshman drop a textbook on the lobby floor. I counted the seconds of silence. Then I said, "She had 3 weeks of asking and you called now?" He didn't answer. I said, "Tell her I'm in the middle of finals." "I'm sorry." I hung up. Finals were 6 weeks away. He knew it. I knew it. But that small lie gave both of us somewhere to put the conversation without anyone having to say what they actually meant. That night I went over the logic of it the way I'd go over a problem set. Column by column. The math was, Grandma Ruth had a health scare. She was home. She had not wanted me to leave. She had not changed her mind about that. My father had been asked to call. He had called. I had given him an exit. Everyone could move on. I did not feel guilty. What surprised me was how completely I did not feel guilty. I went to bed at 10:30. Slept 8 hours for the first time in months. Senior year, I moved off campus to a studio apartment on North Avenue. My lab stipend covered most of the rent. The research assistantship covered the rest. The frame was $11 from a CVS on Peachtree, black plastic, 8x10. I had carried the taped letter folded inside my organic chemistry textbook for 2.5 years. Tape was yellowing. The folds were soft. But the letter held. Every word of it was still legible. I unfolded it on the kitchen counter the night I bought the frame. Smoothed the creases with the back of a spoon. Slid it behind the glass. Tightened the metal tabs. Hung it on a nail above my desk. My roommate, Priya, 3 years into her own doctorate in environmental engineering, originally from Lagos, who had left her family at 20 for her own set of reasons we never fully discussed, came home around midnight. She made herself a cup of tea. She walked over and looked at the framed letter for maybe 30 seconds. "Why is it taped?" My mom tried to throw it out once. She nodded. Went to her room. That was the whole conversation. I didn't need more than that. The letter was on the wall. Anyone who asked got the same 2-word answer. Anyone who didn't ask didn't need one. It was a calendar I didn't have to mark. Every day I sat at that desk and looked up, I remembered that I had taped it. I remembered why. I crossed the stage at Georgia Tech's Bobby Dodd Stadium on a Friday in May. Weather was 72 degrees, slight breeze, 0 clouds. My name was the 51st called in the mechanical engineering section. I had sent 4 invitations to Harlan 4 months earlier. Mom, Dad, Grandma Ruth, Aunt Diane. Mom's came back stamped return to sender. The envelope had been opened and resealed with a different brand of tape. She'd read it. Then send it back without writing a single word on it. Dad's was opened. No reply. I learned from Jess 18 months later that he had read it standing on the back porch and slid it into the pocket of his work jacket and never said anything about it to anyone. Grandma Ruth used hers as a coaster. Jess took a picture of it after. The coffee ring was perfectly centered, like it had been placed with intention. Aunt Diane threw hers out unopened. I had reserved 4 seats in the family section. 3 were empty when the processional started. Dr. Riz came. She sat in the first seat in a navy blazer and clapped for me by name when I walked across the stage. She was the only person in that section who stood up for any single graduate. My faculty advisor, Dr. Karen Shaw, sat next to her. Priya was in the 3rd seat with a handmade sign that said Nora Bennett, mechanical engineer, go off in neon green marker. The 4th seat stayed empty. After the ceremony, the 3 of them took me to dinner at an Ethiopian place on Ponce de Leon. We didn't talk about who hadn't come. We talked about the PhD program I was starting in the fall in Dr. Shaw's lab. I scanned the restaurant twice, then stopped. I had hoped the way you hope for things you already know aren't happening. Package arrived on a Tuesday in August. Brown cardboard box, hand-printed address in pencil, Harlan postmark, no return address. I opened it at the kitchen counter with a steak knife. Inside was a cedar keepsake box. Maybe 10 inches by 7. Someone had carved the word Bennett across the lid a long time ago, the varnish dark and worn around the letters. I'd seen this box my entire childhood. Sat in my grandmother's bedroom on the shelf above her dresser. I lifted the lid. Inside was what I expected. Handwritten recipe cards on yellowed index stock. Cornbread, brown beans, apple stack cake, potato soup, blackberry cobbler. 51 cards in my grandmother's handwriting, 4 in my mother's. Under the cards was a cardboard insert. I lifted it out. Under the insert, lying flat against the cedar bottom, was a manila envelope. I sat down on the kitchen floor. Inside the envelope were 3 things. The first was a high school transcript from Harlan County High School, class of 1988. The name on the transcript was Carolyn Walsh. My mother. GPA 3.92. Honor roll. Student council treasurer. Top 4% of her class. The second was an acceptance letter from Bluegrass Community College in Lexington, their licensed practical nursing program, fall 1988. Partial scholarship. The letter was dated March 14, 1988. The third item was the same letter. Torn in half. Taped back together with old Scotch tape, yellowed and brittle along the spine from decades in that cedar box, so the 2 halves were barely holding on. But they were holding. Someone had taped it and kept it for 35 years. My mother had taped her own scholarship letter back together. I sat with that on the kitchen floor for a long time. Kettle had been on and I forgot about it until Priya came home around 8 and turned it off. She looked at the papers spread on the counter. She didn't say anything. She made tea for both of us and sat down across from me. I worked the math out slowly the way I worked through any problem. My mother had been 18 in 1988. Same GPA I had. Same quiet, private drive. She had applied to nursing school on her own without telling anyone, the same way I had applied to Georgia Tech. Someone had torn her letter. Almost certainly Grandma Ruth, the same grandmother who had sat in that living room armchair with the television volume low all those years. My mother had taped it back together with what was available, the Scotch tape roll from that same medicine cabinet in that same bathroom, and hidden it at the bottom of the cedar box. Under the recipes. Under the whole structure of the life she had been given instead of the one she'd tried to claim. She had stayed. She had married my father in the spring of 1990. She had me in March of 2001. She had spent decades cooking from the cards above the letter. And then she had torn mine. I understood it completely. I did not forgive it. Those are not the same thing. The understanding said. She is also someone's eldest daughter. She was handed the same tape and made the same wound she'd been given. The not forgiving said. She knew exactly what it felt like to have someone tear something you'd worked for. She had the tape in her hand. And she repeated it anyway. The bottom of the manila envelope was a photograph. 4x6, slightly faded. My mother at 18, standing in front of a brick building in Lexington. She was wearing nursing scrubs that didn't belong to her yet, holding a Bluegrass Community College brochure, smiling at whoever was behind the camera. I have seen probably 40 photographs of my mother in my entire life. She is present, composed, appropriate in all of them. But she is not smiling in any of them. Not like this. In this photograph, she is lit up from the inside. Like she has just been told something wonderful and her whole face believed it before she had time to think about it. I stared at that photograph for a long time. Then I put everything back in the cedar box, set it on the shelf above my desk next to the framed letter, and went to bed. The lab spun out a company in my second year of doctoral work. We called it Clear Sense, environmental air quality sensors designed for hospital settings and industrial facilities. Faster, more accurate detection of airborne germs and dangerous particles than any existing portable system. The science was solid. The need was real. Patent filed in January. University's spin-out paperwork signed in March. Dr. Shah was chief science officer. 4 graduate students were named on the patent. I was one of them. My founder equity was 2.2% of the company, vesting over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. Cliff vested on a Thursday morning in my 6th year at Tech. I told nobody in Harlan. Series of funding closed 14 months later. Company was valued at $28 million going in. My vested shares, the portion I'd officially earned, were worth approximately $615,000 on paper. The remaining unvested portion was worth nearly as much again. I sat with that number for a while. I turned it over the way I had turned over the photograph of my mother. I did not call anyone. I did not celebrate. I went to bed at a normal hour and woke up in the morning and went to lab. But I knew something had shifted. And I knew, in the way that you know certain things before you can explain why, that I was going to do something with that money. I just didn't know the timeline yet. That timeline got moved up by my father. The second call from him came on a Tuesday in October, 2 years after the Series A. I was in the lab running calibrations on a new sensor housing when my phone buzzed on the bench. Unknown Kentucky area code. I almost didn't pick up. Nora. Same voice. Same cadence. Dad. Grandma Ruth's 80th birthday. 6 weeks out. Your mother's organizing the party. A pause. She wants the family together. I sat on the lab stool and waited. But that's not why I'm calling. His voice dropped a little, like he was checking the door. They've started on Lily. I set the calibration tool down. Lily was Jess's oldest. She was 5 years old. She'd been born the year I graduated. What do you mean started? The talks. About staying. About being close. Aunt Ann brought it up at Easter and your mother was nodding the whole time. He cleared his throat. I think they're laying the groundwork early so she grows up thinking it was her own idea. She's 5, Dad. I know it. How do you know they're already starting? Diane bought her a toy kitchen for her birthday. Made a whole big production out of it. He paused. Your grandmother toasted the next Bennett woman at the family supper last Sunday. Nobody pushed back. I picked a pen up off the bench. I wrote on the back of my hand. 6 weeks. Lily's age. Kitchen gift. Thank you for telling me, I said. I should have called sooner. Yeah. I let that sit for a beat. You should have. I hung up. I walked out of the lab without finishing the calibration. I went home. I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and I made a list. The way I made any list in the lab, numbered, columns, clear and provable. Item 1, what I want to say. Answer, nothing. Options only. Item 2, what I want to leave behind. Answer, the taped letter. The photograph. A legal document. Item 3, who this is for. Answer, Lily. Only Lily. Everyone else in that room is going to be a witness to something, not an audience for it. Item 4, when? Answer, Grandma Ruth's 80th. 6 weeks. 30+ people. Public enough that whatever happens cannot be quietly denied afterward. Item 5, what I will not do. Answer, argue. Raise my voice. Justify. Apologize. Item 6, what I will do if my mother blocks the door. Answer, stand on the porch and speak through the screen. Lily will still hear me. Item 7, the money. Answer, a trust. Real, signed, funded before I leave Atlanta. So that when I put the envelope on the table, there's an actual document inside it, not a promise. At the bottom of the page I wrote one more note. This is not a scene. This is a demonstration. Inputs, outputs, documented results. I went to bed at 5:20 a.m., slept 2 hours. Got up at 7:30 and called a lawyer. Her name was Janet Moore. She had an office in Midtown Atlanta on Piedmont Avenue. She charged $400 an hour. I met her on a Thursday at 4:15 and I brought a notebook. I told her what I wanted. A trust. Funded by selling a portion of my shares. $250,000. Beneficiaries. Any descendant of Ruth Bennett, male or female at any age, for any educational purpose whatsoever. A Saturday science camp, a trade certificate, a 4-year university, elementary school enrichment, vocational training, anything that involved learning in any accredited or organized program in the United States or Canada. Janet looked up. You want the boys included explicitly? Tradition was gendered. Trust isn't. That's the whole point. She drafted it over 8 days. We met twice more. The funds were transferred on a Monday. The trust document was signed and notarized 11 days after our first meeting. I named it the Bennett Daughters Education Trust, with a footnote clarifying it covered all descendants regardless of gender. I kept daughters in the title on purpose. Janet asked me twice if I wanted to add a personal letter to include with the document. I said no both times. She accepted that the second time without asking again. $250,000 notarized and funded in 11 days. If you have ever put money or time behind a younger version of yourself, a niece, a neighbor's kid, someone who is right now being quietly told what they're going to become before they're old enough to argue back, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments. Your city, your first name, what you set up and why. And if this story is worth your time, hit like right now. It's the single biggest thing you can do to help more women find this channel. I'll see you in a few minutes for the part nobody in that room saw coming. The Friday before the party, I packed my briefcase. It was a tan leather satchel, a gift from Priya when I defended my dissertation. Small, 2 compartments, brass buckle. I had used it exactly 3 times.
From the bottom up, in order. The trust document in its cream-colored envelope. My letter of appointment as an equity partner at ClearSense, on company letterhead, signed by Dr. Shaw. My PhD diploma, in its leather folio. The photograph of my mother at 18, slipped between the diploma pages, so it wouldn't bend. And, on top, the taped Georgia Tech letter. I removed it from the frame, refolded it along the original creases, laid it on top of the diploma. That was the briefcase. I dressed on Saturday morning at 5 a.m. dark navy slacks, white button-down, no embellishment, black flats, hair down, no jewelry. The only thing with any shine on me was the brass buckle of the briefcase. I dressed like the engineer I was. No costume, no performance. The briefcase would do the talking. I flew from Hartsfield-Jackson to Lexington, rented a gray Honda Pilot at the airport, and drove southeast on Route 421 toward Harlan. I stopped once for coffee at a truck stop outside Barberville. Harlan in November looks the way it has always looked. Brick storefronts on Cumberland Avenue, some occupied, some with soaked windows. The old hardware store closed. The diner where my dad used to take us for Saturday breakfast. Gone. Replaced by a vape shop. The mountains still there, quiet and enormous, not caring about any of this one way or the other. I drove past my old high school. The marquee read, "Go Green Dragons. State playoffs Friday. Some things stay exactly where you left them." I drove past the Greyhound station. Still a cinder block room, but the gas pumps beside it were new, touch-screen models. I thought about the man who had sold me my ticket at 5:45 in the morning 9 years ago, whether he was still behind that window. I turned onto Clover Street at 10:20 a.m. The house was the same. Tan siding, covered porch. The mailbox at the curb had been repainted, dark green now instead of black. The flower beds were cleaned up for winter. The gravel driveway had been paved at some point. I parked the rental across the street. I sat in the driver's seat and counted to 100. Then I got out, walked up the porch steps, and knocked twice with 2 knuckles, the way my father always knocked coming in from the garage. The door opened 3/4 of the way. My mother. She was wearing an apron. Gray hair coming in heavy at her temples, more than I'd expected. Her face, the same face and not the same face, the way faces are after 9 years you haven't seen them. She did not say my name. She did not say come in. She did not say hello. She said, "You're 18 minutes early. The party starts at noon." Then she closed the door. Through the shrinking gap, I caught a glimpse of the kitchen counter behind her. The cedar keepsake box sitting in its exact spot, Bennett carved across the lid. I had returned it to her 6 months earlier, shipped from a mailing center in Atlanta, no return address, with a typewritten note tucked into the packing material. Found this at a sale. Thought it belonged with your family. I'd asked Priya's aunt to write the note in her handwriting, someone who would mean nothing to my mother if she ever tried to trace it. It had worked. The box was home. My mother had no idea I had ever opened it. I walked back to the Honda and turned the heat on. I had 18 minutes. Cars arrived at 11:20. Aunt Diane in a tan Buick with her husband Gary, who was louder than necessary about everything. Jess at 11:30 in a forest green Subaru, her husband Marcus in the passenger seat. Jess lifted her son Owen, who was 3, out of the back on her hip with the automatic efficiency of someone who hasn't had 2 free hands in a couple of years. Marcus lifted Lily out the other side. Lily was wearing a pink corduroy dress, white tights, small navy cardigan. She was holding a plastic palomino horse in her left hand. Her hair was the same color mine had been at 5, that particular shade of blonde that hasn't decided what it wants to be yet. I had not seen Jess in 9 years. She was 21 now. She looked like my mother's face on my father's frame. She scanned the street before she went inside, found the rental, found me behind the wheel, and held my gaze for 2 seconds. Then she went inside. At 11:53, Jess crossed the street alone. She had left her coat inside. She came directly to my window. I rolled it down. She said, "I sent you the cedar box." "I know. Thank you." It took me 3 years to find where Grandma had it hidden. Another 2 to work up the nerve. She looked at the briefcase on the passenger seat. "Are you going to blow this whole thing up?"
"No," I said.
"I'm going to put something on the table." She studied me for a moment. Then she nodded once. She walked back across the street. I walked in at 12:09. 32 people in a small living room. Folding chairs along the walls, plastic tablecloths on the folding tables, streamers someone had tried to twist into a spiral on the ceiling. A birthday cake on the dining table, white with yellow roses, Happy 80th, Grandma Ruth in blue gel frosting. A smaller lemon cake on the counter beside it. The cedar box was on the kitchen counter behind the cake, exactly where it always sat. When the front door opened, the conversation in the room dipped. Then it stopped completely. From the kitchen archway, my mother said 2 words in a flat voice. She came. My grandmother Ruth, in her green corduroy armchair, I swear the exact same armchair, looked up over wireframe reading glasses.
"Nora."
"You look thin."
"Hi, Grandma."
Aunt Diane from the dining table. "Well, took you long enough."
"Sorry I missed Christmases," I said.
She started to say something sharp. My father appeared from the kitchen doorway. He crossed the room and put his arms around me. 2 seconds, brief and solid. He let go. He went back to the kitchen without saying a word. That was everything we needed. I found a folding chair near the front window and sat down with the briefcase beside my left foot. The room remembered how to breathe in about 20 seconds. Conversation came back up. Mrs. Hartley asked Mrs. Graves if she wanted more sweet tea. Lily was on the carpet in front of the television, rolling her palomino horse along the edge of the coffee table, narrating something quietly to herself. At 12:38, my mother picked up a butter knife and tapped it against a water glass. The room went quiet. My grandmother rose from her armchair, took her weight on her cane, and looked slowly around the room.
80 years, she said.
"I want to say something about this family." A warm quiet settled in. "Bennett women stay close," she said. "We don't chase things that take us away from the people who need us. We don't get above ourselves. We plant ourselves and we grow where we are." She looked down at Lily, who was still moving the plastic horse along the table edge. "My Carol stayed. My Diane stayed. My Jess stayed." She let that land. "And one day soon my Lily will stay, too." She raised her water glass. To staying. 29 glasses went up. 29 voices said it. Aunt Diane's was the loudest. My father lifted his coffee cup halfway and stopped at his sternum. He held it there. He did not say the words. My glass was on the side table next to my elbow. I did not touch it. Jess had picked hers up. She held it at chest height. She looked at Lily on the floor. She set the glass back down without drinking, without saying the words.
"My mother saw me,"
She did not see Jess. She crossed the room while the applause was still fading and came to stand in the kitchen archway near my chair. Her voice was low and controlled.
Don't.
I'm not thinking anything. I already decided. You're not going to embarrass this family today. I'm not planning to embarrass anyone. Then what exactly are you planning? I'm going to talk to Lily. Her jaw tightened. She is 5 years old, Nora.
I know.
You don't get to walk back in here after 9 years and…
Mom.
I said it quietly. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not here to fight with anyone. I'm going to put something in front of Lily, and then I'm going to leave. After that, you can do whatever you want. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she turned on her heel and went back into the kitchen. Through the archway, I watched her twist a dish towel between both hands, the same brand of cotton dish towels my grandmother had bought in 3 packs my whole childhood. I had folded those towels 10,000 times in that kitchen. The fold was a Bennett fold.
Trifold, hem out.
I picked up the briefcase. I stood up. I walked across the carpet toward Lily. The room went quiet again. I knelt on one knee. The carpet was the same gold and brown pattern I'd grown up walking on, worn thin in the paths between furniture. Lily looked up from her horse. She had her mother's eyes, wide set, very still when she was paying attention.
She did not know me.
I had been gone before she was born. Hi, Lily. I'm your Aunt Nora. She considered this.
Okay, she said.
I opened the briefcase on the carpet. I took out the taped letter, unfolded it, laid it flat between us. The browning tape ran across the scholarship sentence like a seam in old cloth. This is a letter I got when I was 18, I said. It's from a school that said yes to me. Your grandma might tell you about it someday. If she doesn't, your mom will. I kept my voice easy, the way you talk to a 5-year-old about something that is actually very serious. If you ever want to go to school somewhere, anywhere at all, this letter is proof that somebody said yes to me. Somebody will say yes to you, too. You don't have to take my letter. You'll get your own. From the kitchen doorway. Nora. Stop. I kept my eyes on Lily. I stood. I walked 4 steps to the coffee table. I placed the cream-colored envelope on the glass surface next to the birthday cake. That envelope has $250,000 in it. It's in a legal trust. It belongs to any child in this family who wants to learn a Saturday science camp, a trade program, a 4-year university. It doesn't matter which. Owen is on page 3. I looked at Jess. All of them are covered. From now, not from someday. Aunt Diane shot up from her chair. You cannot do this here. I did it 3 weeks ago in an attorney's office in Atlanta, I said. I'm just letting you know about it now. My grandmother rose from her armchair. Her face was red. She pointed at me with the hand that wasn't on the cane. Nora Marie Bennett. The eldest daughter stays. That is how this family. I stood up from the carpet. I looked at my mother in the kitchen archway. Not my grandmother. My mother. This is not what Bennett women do, she said. I said it back to her. Same volume. Same tone. Same tempo. I did not look away. Then I'm not what Bennett women do. The room went completely still. 32 faces. Lily on the carpet picked up the taped letter. She held it up, examining it the way children examine things, turning it over, looking at the tape lines, holding it toward the light from the window. Then she carried it to Jess, held it up to her mother with both hands. Jess knelt down beside her daughter. She took the letter. She held it in both hands. She did not hand it back to me. I reached into the briefcase one final time. I took out the photograph of my mother at 18. Carol Walsh, Bluegrass Community College brochure, nursing scrubs she hadn't earned yet, the smile that doesn't appear in any of the other 40 photographs. I walked to the dining table. I set the photograph face up next to the birthday cake. I said nothing. My mother stepped into the dining room. She looked at the photograph. For seconds. She picked it up, turned it over, turned it back, set it down. Where did you? I didn't answer. Where did you get that, Nora? Dale. Her voice was rising now. Where did she? My father in the kitchen doorway didn't move. He had set his coffee cup on the counter. He wasn't looking at her. Jess found the cedar box in Grandma's attic and sent it to me, I said. I read what was in the bottom of it. My mother turned to look at Jess. Jess, Still on the carpet next to Lily, the taped letter held against her chest did not confirm or deny anything. She looked at our mother steadily and said nothing. You had no right.
Mom.
I kept my voice flat and even. You kept that letter for 35 years. You kept it in the same box where you kept everything that mattered. That means part of you never let it go. The room was not breathing. My grandmother sat back down hard. Aunt Diane had a hand over her mouth. My mother's voice cracked. It was the first time I had ever heard it crack. I picked up the briefcase. The diploma and the company letter were still inside it. I had left them there on purpose. They hadn't been the point. I walked to the front door. Hand on the knob. I turned around one last time.
I taped mine too, Mom.
I held her eyes. Same brand of tape. Same bathroom. Same floor. I opened the door. I walked out. I sat in the rental on Clover Street and didn't turn the key for a long time. The heat I'd left running had been off for 2 hours. The car was cold and quiet. A knock on the passenger window.
Jess.
She had her coat on now, her breath coming white in the November air. She was holding the taped letter and the cream-colored envelope. I rolled the window down. Lily wants to keep this. She held up the letter.
She can.
The trust. Is it actually real? Janet Moore, Piedmont Avenue, Atlanta. The account number is on the cover sheet. Marcus is going to be weird about it. Marcus doesn't have to sign anything. Lily is the beneficiary. You're the custodial parent. He's not on the document. She let out a slow breath. Owen's really on page 3? Red tab, left column. She looked at the envelope in her hands. Then she looked up at me. Are you coming back? For real this time?
I don't know yet.
I held her gaze. But I'm not dead. Something in her face shifted. She almost smiled. She didn't say anything else. She walked back across the street, went inside, and the door closed behind her. I turned the key. The engine caught. I pulled away from Clover Street. The third call from my father came 3 months later, a Wednesday evening in February. I was at the kitchen counter in my apartment cutting sweet potatoes when the phone buzzed. Kentucky area code. I picked up.
Nora. Dad.
Lily just started a Saturday science program.
He paused.
At Bluegrass Community College. They run a STEM camp for elementary-age kids. Jess used the trust to register her. I set the knife down. 6 Saturdays. Hands-on stuff, building simple circuits, basic coding, introduction to chemistry. He let that sit in the air between us. Jess said it was Lily's money to use how Lily wanted. Lily said she wanted the science camp. I didn't say anything for a moment.
Your mother knows, he added.
She drove Jess and Lily to the first session herself. She didn't say anything about it. She just drove. She just drove, I said.
Yeah.
A long pause opened up between us. I should have called 9 years sooner, Nora. Yeah, Dad. You should have. He waited to see if I had anything else. I didn't. He said goodnight and hung up. I went back to the sweet potatoes. Bluegrass Community College. The exact school that had sent my mother her acceptance letter in 1988. The same school whose brochure she had been holding in that photograph at 18, smiling like she'd just been handed everything. Lily was starting there at 5. The envelope from Harlan arrived 3 weeks after my father's call. Pink paper, Jess's handwriting on the outside, and a return address in very large capital letters with a backward Y, a kindergartner's careful best effort. Inside, 2 items. A letter from Lily in pink and red crayon. 6 lines. Dear Aunt Nora, Mom says you went to Georgia Tech. I am going to build a building. It has my name on it. I am 5. Love, Lily. And a drawing of a red brick building, 3 stories tall, 6 windows across, a name written in block letters along the top.
Lily.
Folded inside the drawing was the taped Georgia Tech letter. The original one. The one I had laid on the carpet in front of her. Tape browning, folds worn soft from years of handling. Every word still legible. Stuck to the inside of the letter was a yellow sticky note in Jess's handwriting, but dictated word for word by a 5-year-old. I'm done with this one. I'll get my own. I put the drawing on my refrigerator. I put the letter back in the frame. I hung it above my desk, where it has always lived. The tape is still browning, slow and steady. The scholarship sentence is still there, still readable, the way things are when you take proper care of them. Here is what I know now that I did not know at 18, standing in that kitchen watching my mother fold her hands after the tearing. The people who tell you what you are will tell you, for as long as you let them. They'll say it calmly, and they'll say it at the kitchen table, and they'll say it at church, and they'll start saying it to your niece before she is old enough to push back. They'll say it like it is love, because for them, it is. That's the part that makes it hard. They genuinely believe they are protecting you by keeping you small. The only answer is not an argument. The only answer is to become someone else, quietly, without asking permission, without any fanfare, and then to show up one day and let them look at what you built. Some of them will look away. Some of them will look up.
My mother is still deciding.
My father drove his granddaughter to a science program at the same college that once sent her grandmother a letter that got torn in half. My grandmother is 80 years old, and the recipe box is back on her kitchen counter where it belongs. My Aunt Diane still hasn't spoken to me. And Lily is 5 years old, building something with her name across the top of it. That's the whole story. One torn letter, one roll of tape, and a kid in a pink corduroy dress who is absolutely clear on the fact that she'll write her own. If this story hit you, and I mean really hit you, I need you to do 4 things before you leave this page. 1. Hit the like button.
Right now.
It is the single most powerful thing you can do to make sure other women find the story. The algorithm works on likes. You decide who sees this. 2. Share this with someone. A younger sister.
A niece. A daughter.
A woman you know who is right now being quietly told what she's going to become before she even knows she has a say. Send it to her. This week if you can. 3. Drop a comment. Tell me your city and the time you're watching this. Morning coffee, lunch break, 2 a.m. with headphones in, I want to know. And if this story made you think of someone or something in your own life, tell me that too. These comments are a community. Every story in here matters. 4. Subscribe if you're not already. Because I have a story dropping this Sunday about a woman who anonymously paid for a stranger's entire first year of college and kept that secret for 20 years. And the way it came out is something I still can't fully believe. You don't want to miss that one. If you know a woman who taped something back together and kept going, share this with her. She needs to know she's not alone.
I'll see you Sunday.